Because everyone feels the fear. Your friends, your loved ones, your coworkers, your boss, your heroes, they all feel it. This is another tweet, this time from my boss, Dan Cederholm, author of 5 books, CSS expert, world-traveling speaker. He's the co-founder of Dribbble, where I currently work. And as you can see here in this picture, an accomplished banjo player. To quote this, people that don't constantly ask themselves, am I doing it wrong? I envy you. He tweeted that about 2 months ago. He has doubts. So why should I be surprised that I do too? So when I think to myself that I'll apply for that awesome job when I'm ready, or I'll start that project once I've learned that one more skill that I need, or I'll pitch my boss on this idea after I've practiced a bit more, or I'll introduce myself to that person the next time I see them at this conference, I need to stop letting the doubt win, because it'll never go away. So I suppose we might as well embrace it. We need to push ourselves, and as kitschy as it sounds, believe in ourselves. Because that helps us to desensitize ourselves to the fear's effects by repeated exposure, which is in its own self a reward. Because we frequently will succeed, but understand that we frequently will fail. Which leads us nicely to our next topic. Please allow me to repeat myself. I will fail. I will fail at something sometime, probably a lot of things. It's one of life's fun little guarantees. So what can we do about that? For the same reasons that I told you to embrace your fear, I think you should embrace your failure. Because it's going to happen whether you want it to or not. So by running headlong into it, you learn resilience. This is from Jason Friedman, 42 Floors, from a recent blog post about imposter syndrome. Resilience is a learned trait, perhaps one of the most important character traits one can possibly have. He wrote that when people are intimidated by the work in front of them, some respond with an innate resilience to buckle down and to get it done. But for others, that's not their natural reaction. My reaction is to back down, to give up. But by forcing myself to persevere, I get a little bit better every time. I don't always succeed, but in trying, it gets a little easier every time it happens. Another thing is to give ourselves permission to fail. As the Mythbusters say, failure is always an option. Failure is not a goal, but it can be quite valuable if you're paying attention, because you can learn so much from your failure. After outages or other major problems at work, we perform a frequently brief postmortem in which we ask ourselves 5 important questions. What happened? It's important to know, actually, have a firm grasp on what actually broke. What was the solution? So that way we can refer back to it if it breaks again. Then we get into some softer questions like, what went well? Because we want to honor the things that we're already doing well. Did we communicate? Were we on top of the problem? Were we alerted right away when something went wrong? Were we able to identify the cause quickly? Next question is, what didn't go well? What did we miss? What did we not even know could possibly be a problem? What vendor let us down? So we want to recognize that we're not perfect and identify where we can improve. But most importantly, the final question is, what is the follow-up? What are the actionable items that we're going to do going forward to prevent this in the future, or to be better able to handle it if it happens again? Do we need better documentation? Do we need better training? Do we need better tools? Do we need better monitoring? And these are the things that help you out in the long run. And this was influenced pretty heavily by reading about what Etsy blogs, about what they call just culture, just as in justice. The foundation of which are these blameless postmortems. So rather than trying to identify some single root cause, the person or people who screwed up and punishing them, attempt to identify the parts of the system that were insufficient. Lack of training, lack of monitoring, lack of tests in your code. Focus on fixing those, and you end up with a better system independent of any particular person. And this stems from the assumption that failures in complex systems are systemic, rather than having a single identifiable root cause. It was the confluence of these 5 things that all went wrong at once that caused the site to go down, or your performance to go poor, or for you to miss your goals. And pointing to one person and blaming them solves none of that. but improving your tooling and your process and your communication as an organization will. And by removing the concept of blame, scapegoating, or finger pointing, everyone is free to be honest. There's no disincentive to give an accurate account of what happened. And if we're going to fail anyway, I suppose we might as well practice the art of failing well. Make it easier on ourselves when we ultimately do fail. And what I try to do is to fail at a small thing to begin with. Because if I succeed, hooray, I can build on that, maybe be a little bit ambitious, a little riskier with my next step. But if I fail, hooray, I failed at something small, so who gives a shit? Try a new thing. This is not from a blog post or a tweet. This is actually from 19th century author Gustave Flaubert. I have no idea if I pronounced that correctly. And it's been rattling around my brain for a little over a decade when I first came across it. Be regular and orderly in your life, that you may be violent and original in your work. I think one part of failing well is failing in as few places at a time as you can. It's easier to fail well from a stable foundation. It's easier to try a new job if your life at home is going smoothly. It is easier to take the risk of starting your own business if you already have a little bit of money set aside. So it's good to pick the thing that you want to fail at, the thing that you want to put your risks on, and keep everything else as calm as possible. Has anybody heard this phrase before from your developer friends? Worse is better. It's a concept originally from the Lisp community in the 1980s, but I think it really succinctly describes an MVP as well. And it comes from a hierarchy of needs. That first, simplicity is the most important thing, followed by correctness, followed by consistency, and then all the way in last place is completeness. And it's easy to miss the point because of the memorable phrasing. We're not talking about worse quality. We're talking about that in doing fewer things, you can do them better. Simplicity and correctness are more important than completeness. Going to the example the gentleman was mentioned before, you can build this complex system, or you can start a newsletter and get going from on day one, building as you go along. And to a developer like myself, this whole concept can come as quite a shock. Many of us value correctness or even completeness as paramount, dooming us to a big, bad kind of failure. Whereas if we start with simplicity, we fail in small, manageable increments until we reach correctness, moving from top to bottom, perhaps never even reaching completeness unless strictly necessary. And that's a good kind of failure. So from what I know of the tenets of lean startup, this is an idea that translates quite well from programming to your world. Has anybody heard of a game called The Game Never Ending from a company called Ludicorp? It was a browser-based MMO from the early 2000s, and you'd be forgiven for never having heard of it because it never launched. They worked on it for many years, couldn't quite figure out how to get it working. And what they ended up doing is taking one small facet of the game, sharing pictures with your friends, and they used that idea to launch Flickr. The game quickly became one of the most foundational social networks of its time. Got another example, product called Odeo from Obvious Corp. Anybody heard of that? All right, this one actually launched, but you would again be forgiven for never having heard of it because they couldn't quite figure out how to get it to work as a business. So they scrapped it and went with their second idea and launched Twitter. The point that I'm trying to make is that if our idea isn't working, it isn't because we're bad thinkers or bad developers or bad people. It's that frequently we have other ideas that we're ignoring while we focus on this failure. And that maybe one of your second ideas is your success. And these fears that I'm talking about are very real, and I feel them regularly, less than I used to, and hopefully you will too. And if you take away nothing else from what I'm telling you tonight, I want you to give yourselves permission to fail well. It's by this struggle and this failure that we continue to grow as developers, friends, or people. And if Sharon Steed can stand on stage stuttering in front of a room of hundreds and tell us about how she's conquered the problems that life has put before her, what do you think that each of us can accomplish? Thank you for your time and your attention. And at this point, I would like to open the floor if anybody has any questions or any feedback or any examples that you want to talk about in your own career, in your own startups. Yes, sir?
You kind of touched on perfectionism
Mm-hmm.
in your talk. You know, for somebody like myself who's a bit of a perfectionist, it's a major challenge. And sometimes you just have to accept good enough. So what advice do you have around that?
That one's a tough one. That's the one that I struggle with literally on a day-to-day basis. The workflow that we have at Dribbble is to work in very small increments. It's a team for developers. And I will often find myself sitting, staring at a blank screen, trying to figure out the best possible way to do whatever it is that I'm trying to do. And think through about 5 or 6 different ideas in my head. And other people are shipping pull requests, shipping new features, shipping bug fixes, while I'm still sitting here working on a stupid fucking feature. And I wish I had a really good answer, but what it comes down to for myself, when I find myself doing that, is to just think of the first shitty idea that I can and do it. And in the act of doing it, I will either figure out that it's not that bad to begin with, it's actually a pretty all right idea, or it's good enough, or I'll hit the rough edges and realize that's why this won't work, instead of trying to think through ahead. And I kind of go into the point that you were making before the presentation about getting out of your head and getting out to talk to your customers or getting out to see people. And I solve it in the same ways. In my way, it's with the bits of just getting out of my head and getting something on the page. And it either works or it doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, iterate from there. Again, failing in the small chunks. I would rather fail privately in my office in a tiny little 20 minutes worth of work and it's crappy, jettison it, start again, than, this is a real example, spent 3 weeks working on 4 implementations of one feature that we finally shipped. That would have taken me 3 days to do if I actually would have just done it, instead of trying to over-engineer it or figure out the most perfect way of doing this, or figuring out a way that's going to future-proof us for the next 6 months in ways that who even knows if we're ever actually going to run into those edge cases. You can actually just do something, do anything. You don't have to ship whatever you write, but you need to just get it out of your head and onto the page, or into the product, or into the plan, or into the pitch, or into the whatever. So to answer your question, how do you get around perfectionism? Do it. It's a terrible answer, but I think it's just what you got to do. It's hard. It's hard for me. So push through it.
That I once read about that was you're not really building a grand piano, so just do the first thing that comes to your head. Right?
You don't have to. The first thing you write down is not the thing that's not what's etched in stone. It's just the first thing you wrote down. And if it's not good enough, you'll figure out why. And it's something I've been slowly coming around to as I've gotten older. In general, my wife and I had our first kid in October, and I was focusing. Thank you very much. That was not an applause break. But a mixture of all sorts of new problems that I've never even considered, with no time or energy to actually try to solve them, have forced me to stop focusing on the best solution. What does Wirecutter say I should do? What is the most highly rated thing on Amazon that will solve my problem? And that's just to do something that will not actively damage us. And if that's good enough, yeah, done. I don't need to think about it anymore. Like, I need to stop focusing so much on the best and start thinking on good enough. And because I don't have the luxury of best anymore, I have too many problems to solve on a day-to-day basis. And so it's taken me about 15 years to get to the point where I can say, okay, perfection doesn't have to be absolute in every measure, because I got shit I got to get done. What'd you say?
80% perfect.
80% perfect is awesome. Is the kid sleeping? Good.
Isn't that the saying, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good?
Yeah.
Don't, enemy of the good. The way I prefer to say that is, don't let perfect be the enemy of done.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because, and if it's not good enough, you're going to find out if it's not good enough because it's not good enough.
Right.
But if it is good enough, you never need to think about it again. So that's, I don't walk the walk, but I try to talk the talk on that one. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Kind of piggybacking on that thought, the other week I read a really succinct quote. I can't remember exactly what it is, but the thought was that
Give us the good enough version.
that way, like I'm a developer, a lot of us are. You're researching things, how to do something. You find a blog post from a developer, and you think, oh God, they're brilliant. Well, you know, you don't write a blog post about something you did a half-assed job on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a filter there.
Mhm.
That's inherently, if somebody writes about it on the web, they've spent some time making sure they got it right. So that's not necessarily representative of your peers' work, what they publish.
Exactly, and I briefly alluded to that earlier about that you're comparing your day-to-day shitty problem solving to their polished, perfect solution that took them who knows how long to arrive at, and how much education and how much of their teammates fed into that. You can't compare those two. You can learn from them and you can value them, but you can't compare the crappy code you just wrote or the crappy pitch you just made to this polished result that's been presented. That's a very good point. That it's apples and oranges. Valuable, but not to compare yourself to. All right.
So just out of curiosity, have you read the book Mindset?
I don't believe that I have.
Right, you might want to look into it because it's very similar, you know, in scope to what you just described.
Uh-huh.
Basically, the premise of the book is there's two types of mindset. There's fixed mindset, which is it's a zero-sum game. If I fail, I fail, and it's inherently me.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's growth mindset, which I think you're aspiring to, which is the idea that failure is just a data point. It's you do a postmortem, you take it, and you build on it, and you go. But the happiest and ultimately most successful people have a growth mindset
Mhm.
versus a fixed mindset, and there's a lot of good discussion on examples of it.
To again,
Carol Dweck, yeah.
Carol, D-W-I-C-K? E-C.
Quick
To
read, it's very straightforward, but it's very much in line with what you.
Based on,
That's-
Very well
it's
presented.
not a feel-good book, it's based on a lot of cognitive psychology research. He's a
Exactly.
former dean or dean of.
I'm a nerd.
Stanford, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, to again quote the Mythbusters, as I so frequently do in my day-to-day life, that's a result. Like, I mean, if the whole thing blows up in your face, you just learned something.
Yeah.
Whether you choose to act on that or not, whether you choose to ignore it or just focus on, I failed, better eat a pint of ice cream, or pick it up and learn from it. Now, that sounds like a really interesting book. Check that out. Mindset by Carol Dweck. I'm just going to suggest that all to you guys. I hear it's a really good book. Check it out. Yes, sir.
Quick question. You're part of talking about worse is best and simplicity is kind of capital and bullshit with the project as opposed to completeness. Could you talk about how you do quality by design in looking for a manufactured product, trying to build in your whole quality control?
I wish that I had information to tell you. I work completely in software, in which terrible design is just okay. I have a lot of respect for the people who work in hardware or physical things, or things that actually where the results actually matter. Because I don't know that I could deal with that kind of stress of knowing knowing the mistakes that I make. And I'm here. I'm completely undermining everything that I just told you. But of just dealing with the fact that mistakes made now might not even know about it in the future until the future. It's a conversation I have with my wife actually a lot. She likes to bake, whereas I cannot stand baking. I much prefer cooking because I know right away if I screwed it up. The feedback loop is so tiny is that if I put too much salt in it, it is obvious that I put too much salt in it, or if I burned it, or if I put whatever. Counterexample of that in baking is my wife made a chocolate cake a couple years ago. It was so bad that it's stuck in our memory now. It's something we talk about. is she put 2 tablespoons of baking soda, baking powder. I can never tell you the difference. Instead of 3 teaspoons. And we didn't know it until we went and tried to make it again because she ate it, took a slice, and it tasted like a lead pipe. That's not how chocolate cakes are supposed to taste. And we could not figure out what was wrong. Is something expired? Did something go badly? Whatever. And it wasn't until she went to go remake it and she was starting to measure it out, and she remembered, this is not what I used to measure this out. Oh shit, this is what I did. Exactly. So software, I usually know pretty quickly when I screwed something up. But dealing with actually like, I have a lot of respect for that, but it's not something that has ever appealed to me. Yes, sir.
I mean, I don't know if I can answer
Please,
your
absolutely.
question or
Please.
not,
This is not me. This is not me on high. Let's all talk.
The physical product, especially if you're dealing with overseas manufacturers, is a wonderful learning experience where you get to fail often and reship the product regularly. And eventually now if I would have seen this, I mean, I would have started this way, but eventually you create a process for quality control, like what exactly, when I get the product, what exactly are the things, indicators of this product looking and functioning the way I want it to look. And so
I mean, a lot of us make fun of Six Sigma, but it came out of a real need for exactly that type of thing, of defining a process of defining success.
Yeah.
It doesn't apply really outside of manufacturing, so don't ever use Six Sigma in anything that you do, except where it's a really good idea. But I interrupted you.
Yeah, no, and then we went through 4 or 5 suppliers before we finally found a supplier that we could communicate effectively with, and we ultimately sent them our key performance indicators. What we're going to do to check out this item, so that they can check the item then before they even send it to us. Because every time they send us an item and it's not sellable, we lose money on it. We lose money on shipping. It's just a big loss.
Closing that feedback loop and making that as tight and as small as possible, I think is as with so many other things. I mean, that's not just the physical products. I think that might be the key. Like, I mean, if my tests fail, I know within about 10 seconds whether they failed. And anything longer than that is just infuriating to me. I don't know if you can do that with a physical product, but be ruthless in finding where you can define that and where you can get the feedback immediately, rather than like waiting to the end of a 6-month product run.
Right.
Are you talking about having to make that like in China, or? My understanding is that it's pretty specific. I would find somebody who's done that before and somebody else. I got it, dude. I saw a quadcopter thing. I'll give you the same friendly you might know.
Yeah, I have experience in pharmaceuticals.
Okay. Oh, you're a chemist?
Yeah.
Chemistry. I'm a chemist. Oh, yeah.
So you guys deal with real things. I'm in awe of people who deal with actual things that exist in the real world. I don't have that kind of patience.
And that's where perfect counts.
Yeah. That's where perfect counts. No one is going to die if I screw my thing.
Exactly.
Oh, is there somebody else?
Oh, no, more chemists.
A little applause break for the chemists.
Science.
Well, we were, and we put our jobs on time, so
All right. That's even better than being chemists. Quit your job. I expect you all to quit your jobs by the end of the month.
That's a good tie. My question is, if you couple fear of failure with fear of cash flow, which is a big part of it, which may be not rational either in terms of what you can really sustain, and what you got built up. It seems like that those two magnify, at least for me, like that combination, and both of them even to a level of a little bit being irrational about it, in the sense I've never been out of work for 2 weeks in my 20-year career. But yet.
But that fear's still in the back of your head.
The cash flow is everything.
Man, so more lessons that I've learned. I'm sorry that I keep talking.
No, do not apologize.
But I learned something very important while I was quitting my job. that while cash flow is king, I completely stepped away from it and I said impact for me is king. That whatever I'm doing must have impact, must actually be producing something, and that in my 13 years of working my ass off, that I was tired of creating impact for somebody else's company. And how many days did I waste creating for someone else when I could have been creating for myself? And impact was what pushed me over the edge.
I had that same come to Jesus moment.
Exact
same thing happened.
See, I feel like such a hypocrite because I've never quit my job before. I love being an employee. Somebody pays my paycheck. I'm trying to respect for people who do want to do that and are successful at that, or even I have tremendous respect for people who don't succeed at that, because that is it's a big deal. That's not a small thing, especially if you have a family that you're taking care of. So yeah.
I can add a little bit to that though. Well, are we done? Maybe.
I'm just standing here because people keep talking. I'm more than happy to sit down.
I'm just going to chip in a little bit here on that startup thing, or the cash flow thing. I am in the same boat. I was panicking. I was actually telling Patrick before I quit my job. I think I spent the last week or two trying to find more work in the same company, even just because I was panicking about losing the money. In the end, I planned a little bit for it. And I think the point that you had about having things set up at home and kind of settled there, and then I planned a little bit for it and didn't really need the money for about a year, then I'm okay, right? So it was just kind of like really scaling back. So I've sold almost everything that I had. I mean, I sold everything that it wasn't nailed down, that I didn't really need. Even books, anything I could get, I've been selling that, and still am kind of unloading all that stuff because I found out that stuff is a really big contributing factor to what stopped me from being able to have that freedom. Right? I had a boat, I can't remember, a house and some other things, a rental property, and started unloading all of that, and really that made a huge difference.
So you made that decision of what is the thing that you wanted to put all your risk in.
Yeah.
And then everything else,
Yep.
smooth it out as much as you can.
Yep.
Because if you're starting a business while you're moving across the country in the middle of a divorce, that's a recipe for a big bad kind of failure.
That's probably suboptimal.
My experience is complete opposite of yours. The longest I've ever held a full-time job is like 2 months, ever. So it's like, when that's the situation, you're kind of like destined to be an entrepreneur. Otherwise, you're just not going to make it in anything.
Kind of more by necessity, right?
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know Peter, he's he owns the Startup Venture Loft.
I wouldn't say own. I would say started.
He started it, and it owns him now. And Healthcare Minnesota and several other things. So great guy to kind of pick his brain if you get a chance. So anything else, or I'll maybe chime in on kind of the next steps, and then we can get out of here on time. Any other questions for Patrick? Or?
I just had one thing to add about quitting your job.
Okay.
I quit 3 times between 1991 and 2004, and went back to the same place. And by the 3rd time, they wouldn't even have a going away party for me. So if you do quit your job, quit it like you love them, not like you just won the lottery.
Yeah,
absolutely. And so, and on one hand, maybe you're like, not to have something to fall back on because you don't ever want it to come to that. But reality is reality,
yeah.
and whatever, and it's not the worst thing that can happen.
Well, that's part of the biggest reason that people are scared to start startups in Minnesota, is because there's that fear of not being able to be taken back. That's part of the reason that Silicon Valley works, is because when startups fail, A, they get bought for a lot of money even when they're failing, but B, all these companies in Silicon Valley take people right back in from failed startups. And in Minnesota, people are scared of having failure on your track record. When in Silicon Valley, there's just more experience. So that's part of the loop that I want to help create here. Is is companies that are willing to take in entrepreneurs and whole teams of startups after they're tanked.
Right. Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are going to tank, right? And to that point, too, the other thing that made me think of was really, I think of all the things that I've done and learned over the years, probably I still think my network is the most important thing. Right? The group of people that I try to stay in contact with and haven't pissed off too much. You know, those are the people that are it kind of makes it worthwhile. So. All right, so I'm going to just go through what we talked about a little, just a short rehash of what we did last month for those of you who weren't here, and this is going to keep going on. So as I was saying earlier, Patrick is the reason why I lost my job.
Lost your job, you're crazy and different.
Patrick's the reason why I quit my job, and it was really this talk that was the inspiration to kind of, I've been thinking about it, obviously planning it for a while, but when I finally went and heard this talk in December, it was the thing that really pushed me over the edge. Made it okay for me to quit. And so my plan was, I didn't really have a plan, I guess. What I was going to do was do 12 and 12, which is 12 startups in 12 months. Very tightly time boxed, things that can be built in 7 days of development. I'm a developer, so I can usually whip stuff out. And so that's what I've been doing. So I did a startup in January. I'm doing a different one in February. And the way these work is they're not like 180-degree turns, right? So they're somewhere related to each other. So it isn't a big learning curve or anything to do from one to the other. But it's really all about following this process, about minimizing the time, the feedback loop here. So talking, Patrick was talking about baking versus cooking, right? This is all like with a wok and a high heat, trying to get stuff going, and I know right away. So the primary thing that I've been focusing on, I love this graphic, right, is I don't know which one of them is me. But, I want to spend a lot of time doing stuff, talking to people, being out in there, kind of getting stuff done, right? I don't want to sit in my office in my head and theorize about things, right? Because I found out that I'm really bad at guessing what people like, or like I have no idea half the time. So my psychic ability is probably worse than everybody else's. So recap quick, the January startup was real estate broker lists, and this is about helping real estate sales agents find brokers, right? The revenue model is that brokers will pay to be listed on here, and it's more of a, like Angie's List, I guess, for brokers, right? Might be the way to think about it. Except for rather than charging the agent, I'm charging the broker. So there are companies that are doing this. I was really excited when there was at least one other company doing this. I was pretty happy to hear that, because when I first thought of the idea, it was on December 30th or something. I didn't get started on it until January 1st, and so by January 7th, I had to release, or 7 business days, so I think it was finally January 9th or 11th or something like that by the time I actually released. Went live, had a few meetings with some brokers. It's been going okay. I just got kind of a verbal agreement back from Minnesota Realty School, which is one of the schools that does training for real estate agents. So we're partnering with them, doing reciprocal links and exchanges, and they're sending their students over to the site in order to help them find brokers. I don't have any paying people yet, so we're still working on the cash flow. We'll see how that goes. So what happened was I realized I've got this database of something like 6,000 brokers in Minnesota, and I have some level of email, and I have some people who have signed up for the trial, for an invite, and I want to do a drip marketing to them, right? And so drip marketing, I went on and looked at a bunch of drip marketing tools. They're either crazy expensive for a startup.
What's drip marketing?
Sorry, drip marketing is if you sign up for an invite, and what I want to do then is you sign up for a trial on my site. I want to maybe email you the next day and say, hey, how's it going? Do you have any questions? Then I might email you 3 days later. Have you run into anything else? Is there any issues? And then maybe it's a 14-day trial. So I might email you at 7 days and again at 14 days. Kind of, the idea is to drip information out to them at various stages so that it's effective in getting them on board or getting them converted into a customer. Another example of drip marketing would be an email course. You sign up for a course and they send you a 5-day course. Every day you get a new thing to do or whatever. That's all kind of under the big umbrella of drip marketing. So I wanted to do that, but I don't have $50 a month in the budget to do that. So can we see that? Hypercue, Hypercue. So going to be a new drip marketing thing. We'll see how it goes, but the idea is to try to build this. This is completely and entirely focused on one thing, which is you have an email list and you're looking for new customers. So anything else, 5-day courses, all that stuff, none of that is in the scope. The focus on this thing is to make it fast and easy to set up a drip campaign. So we want 30 seconds or more. So kind of, we worked out the elevator pitch on it. This is it. For small businesses who want to convert email leads into customers, Hypercue is a marketing automation product that makes drip marketing dead simple, right? Unlike MailChimp, you can have a new email campaign, a completely new email campaign set up and ready in 60 seconds. Right? So that's the focus. It's all new. So that's the pitch. Now, what I liked about this is we know who our customer is and who our customer isn't, right? So if you're doing an email course, you're not our customer, right? Who's our customer? Only people with an email list who are trying to get converted into customers. Does that make sense?
How much do you charge?
You're there, huh? All right, we have customer number one. If you go to the website and you click on the pricing and thing, it'll say you've caught us when we're not quite ready for pricing yet. But sign up for the email list and we'll get a hold of you. We'd love to talk to you about it, because you're the type of customer that we're targeting. Anybody else? Yeah, okay, so we got a couple. So one of the things we're going to be doing is we'll be meeting with these people who join early and talking about what your needs are and really focusing on the one thing, which is really turning, I don't want to get too much into the pitch right now, but the point is that it's really hard to set up a drip campaign. It takes a long time and a lot of thought, and we're gonna make that just that simple. So that's the plan. I feel really kind of good. I got a couple people, right? All right.
But be sure to talk to them within this month, otherwise
my ADHD kicks in on the 1st of every month. So
along those lines, why do you feel compelled to go from one, start something and then move on to the next thing rather than say, okay, how do I take it to the next level and see it through? I mean, obviously, if you got some negative feedback that said
sure,
stop, but that would be one thing. But if you kind of making some progress,
sure.
I think a lack of focus.
Yeah, so lack of focus is a really important thing for me to keep in mind as I go through and do this stuff. So that's why I said it can't be really far from each other. They have to be complementary things. The idea is they're all going to run at the same time, right? So I'm not going to give up real estate broker list. I'm going to use Hypercue to make real estate broker list better, right? And I'm going to do that in such a way that I can help other people make their business better. Right? So it's kind of solving my own needs. So the reason I ended up on Hypercue is because I had a problem. I wanted to set up a marketing campaign for the broker list. So it works together. I will be setting up a marketing campaign for broker list and going ahead building all that out. So I don't want it to sound like I'm building 12 companies and they're completely independent, and then at the end of the month I'm like, oh, that was fun and I'm done, right? But rather that I'll keep building them out. Some of them will fail, I'm sure of it, right? I expect most of them will fail. But I'll learn a lot in the process. And so as we get further and further along, I guess the example I would use is venture capitalists, right? These guys who invest in companies. They're really the best in the world, right? For figuring out what companies are the best companies to invest in, right? And they're wrong 70 or 80% of the time, right? That's the best you can do as a VC guy who's like really well educated, who does this for a living. He's wrong 70 to 80% of the time. I might be wrong more often than that.
Would you say that you've given yourself permission to fail?
I have given myself permission to fail. But that's why I'm also time boxing things. So, and I'm going, the process, and I'll be sharing the process as we go along in the Meetup events here. The process that I follow and the way I build things, and all this is meant to eliminate waste and meant to make it fast. And
Just to carry it through, so I get the
Yep.
idea of keeping the technologies related so that you can try different channels or points of view.
Yep.
But, if you went back to your real estate opportunity, how much of that do you think is a technology solution versus, the networking and necessary selling that goes into developing the business?
Yeah. I don't know, that's got to be 95% relationship in that market. It's got to be 95% sales and marketing, building that network and everything. Yeah. Probably the biggest challenge that I've had is in that place is getting enough face time from people and enough feedback from people to keep the idea moving. Yeah. So,
what's your end goal? Is it the learning process that you think will lead to something sticking out of the thing, or is it giving yourself time to go through this process?
I'll refer back to maybe a little bit of some of what Patrick was getting at, is that the very first time I rode a bike, I had an expectation that I was going to get on my bike and I was going to go down the driveway, and then at the end of our driveway, and I was looking at a little turn, and my brother, he had a little jump built there. My brother was 10 years old. So I had it in my head, like, I have seen him do this so many times. I have studied this. I know I'm going to get on, like, I'm getting the training wheels off today, and I am going to go down the end of the driveway, I'm going to turn, and I'm going to jump off the ditch like my brother does. Right, so I got this scar. I think it's right. So, but the point is, right, like I had this expectation that I was going to be successful right away, and you really never are in anything. I don't think. I think anything worth having, there is this terrible process of pain and misery going through learning how to do it and figuring out what works and what doesn't work, and that's the exciting and exhilarating part for me. So I don't expect that most of it will fail or most of it will succeed. I expect that I will iterate on several ideas until I learn like how to really target in on the customer's problem and how to implement these things and how to really focus in on really the minimum most important thing. Because my natural tendency is like, I've studied this, I've read the book, I've done all this stuff. I know that I'm going to go meet with the customer and they're going to write me a $10,000 check because, of course, that's the way it works. But that never has happened yet. So that answer your question, hopefully? Long-windedly?
Dale, a trivial question. How much time do you spend on coming up with the need for all your?
How much time? Less than 2 hours. So like RE broker list, I don't know, it's really super inventive, right? Like real estate broker list, because that's what it was. So very, very little, almost no time. I really don't think the name means anything at all. And there's tons of examples of companies who've been in business for a long time and changed their name. So I don't worry about it. Hopefully it's something people can remember.
Have you time boxed other smaller parts of your project? So you say 2 hours for it. I'm going to spend 5 hours coming up with the tech stack. I'm going to use it for the website.
Yep. So the tech stack is already all defined. So before I started this whole process, I had the tech stack set up in a highly automated, repeatable way. So it's pretty trivial to spin up a new idea. So that works pretty well.
What do you use?
I use node generators or Yeoman and Node and Bootstrap and Mean and Express and Angular, whatever. Bunch of stuff. It's just something that I found that I can iterate on super fast, and it's not, to maybe Patrick's point, it is not beautiful code. Every day when I look at it, every day I'm just like, oh, this is horrible. but it works, and that's what it needs to do. And it doesn't need to be beautiful right now. It just needs to work. So,
It doesn't need to scale to 1 million users. It
No.
doesn't need. There's a whole bunch of things that you don't need to care about.
yeah, I don't care about any of that. You know, when I have more than 5 users, I'll worry about how it will perform with 10. But until then, so that answer for you. Yeah, it's just kind of, I just found something that worked and did that, and it doesn't really matter at all what that is. It's just whatever works for me. So yeah, go sign up at HyperQ. So I'm gonna do a little exercise. That the whole point of me talking is to do an exercise. So you guys are gonna break up. You know this. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. You can play along. And feel free to chime in if I don't. I'm doing all this from memory, so I don't remember all the details. But so you guys are going to open a Lamborghini dealership here in Minnesota. Y'all are you love Lamborghinis, and you think this is going to be the next big thing here. Yeah, who doesn't, right? It's going to be the next big thing here in Minneapolis. So pair off into about 5 or 6 groups. Here's what's happening. I'm going to set up the scenario for you. So you've been planning this for about a year. You got your funding. You built your building. You got a great location. You've opened your business. It's day 1. You're sitting there. Big fanfare. You got balloons everywhere. Nobody comes in. Nobody pulled in. You got mechanics in the back sitting around, $150 an hour, whatever they charge, right? And they're just sitting there, cleaning the shop, not really making any money, right? This lady comes in, she's driving a Volvo, right? She's got her 2 kids in the back, Volvo station wagon, nice one, right? She says, listen, I need a tune-up. You're a block away from my house. I love this location. You know, would you just do a tune-up on my car? I'll pay you the same margin. So whatever you get on the repairs for the Lamborghini, like, I'll pay you the same margin. So you'll end up with the same profit. Would you do that? So that's the question. You own the dealership, talk amongst yourselves, break up into groups of about 5 or 6. Would you do the tune-up on the Volvo? Let's say it's $900. Would you do it, or would you tell her no? Sound good? We'll give you 5 minutes, 10 minutes to talk about it, and then.
So here's I sound like shit.
I was very well. I really am. So, and obviously,
Was a little bit Hey, no, I think it's
yeah.
You already said that.
I did that street. Like, I don't. Second guy.
I mean, yeah, no, it's really
I love telling you about everything. I'm happy to start technical things. I don't do that. You can spend 6 months with them. What is that going to do? You're an inspiration. That makes me feel good. And if you had a banger at the end of the year, don't blame me.
that wasn't. Your wife?
My wife was just about to their lives in our place.
What'd you think? I like that talk a lot. Oh, I understand. Hopefully that helps. Oh, good. I'm sorry. I wish I would have got it here sooner.
It's wrong date.
Yeah, I don't envy you at all, man.
These are the moments that
Hopefully we can grow a little bit more. And, oh, I forgot to do this one.
I think we got
Yeah, there's another thing that I go to, another building that has a locked door. I just don't know if you don't want That's all right. It'll work itself out eventually. Yeah. Well, hopefully once I get my foot back, I'd like to come down here and help more on the events and do that stuff. Maybe, I don't know. I can look. Those are usually, I like how you guys. Wow, really? That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know. Well, what's funny is there's two IoT girls. The other one's yeah, for sure. Yeah. You did a good job of socializing and networking and stuff. Yeah, I don't know if I'll be that. It looks like I'm free, so. But yeah, frankly, it's why.
So,
I noticed it just like at the end of the day, I'm just like, I don't want to do anything. You guys getting married or what?
Yeah, pretty soon.
Oh, yeah?
really
What? Oh, really? Wow. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. I don't know what I was doing. Screwing around when I was I definitely was. Sure was. I might have been in jail. I'm not sure. No, I wasn't. All my jail time was before I turned 18, so it worked out really well. Nothing on my record. It's on YouTube probably now. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. I know, right? That's all I needed was a YouTube video of something I was doing. Clap 3 times if you can hear me. Clap 3 times if you can hear me. Yay! See if we can interrupt. You guys want more time, or you guys got it figured out? What do you think? Anybody want more time? All right, cool. So what did we decide? You guys are. Let's go around the room, group by group, volunteer, I guess. And what did everybody decide?
We decided we disagree. Yeah. So,
We didn't decide. Okay, you disagree.
we have plus things that they should charge.
Okay, so why don't you somebody represent one side? And,
I think that we do charge. We do the service.
okay.
We do explain what it costs.
Okay.
Before we just do the service.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, and I would say, if assuming you're a year in, I would assume you've done your, various tests and figured out that there's a real deal and a real market there. And you wouldn't allow yourself to be distracted from the core business on one data point. In the first, would you say, first day?
First day.
Focus.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, what was your reasoning for doing it?
For mine, for some for doing it. We're not devaluing the brand by any means. I don't think, because you're still saying that this is service. My mechanics are at the top of the line equipment. My mechanics are top of the line. We charge $900 for the service.
Okay.
So it's you're still charging, still providing the service at that level. Just because it's a Lamborghini, which there probably aren't a ton of Lamborghinis in Minnesota, they're going to come in if they want.
They're all broken today.
Okay.
But then,
So
your service department has to order parts for the ball. The next thing you know, they're into a logistical challenge getting the part for the ball boat instead of the Lamborghini channel.
Okay.
And the next thing you know, you've got.
We go to Napa.
And I think you established that it's not a problem to do. Like you said, you have the capability.
We made the assumption.
Mechanics are there.
Right.
They're available to do the work.
Right.
Yeah.
We made the assumption that, you got the time, it's, you don't know what that customer relationship is in terms of connections, and so it's like, if it's what's the downside to doing it? We didn't make the connection of maybe there's parts and maybe future work and all that. We just said, if there's time, and if these are people aren't going to be like calling up customers, they're in the back, they got free time, just take advantage and set some goodwill and.
Yep.
Yeah, the goodwill of the customer. It could be a long tail.
I mean, still charge for it, but do the work, right? I mean,
And then put her in a Lamborghini station wagon while she's in the car.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Anybody else?
And I wouldn't give her a discount either. It's either
No.
yes or no.
Yeah.
Yeah, reasonable prices, sure.
That
Okay.
would be valid.
Okay.
I would think I'll speak first. I think we agree with this gentleman that we should not take.
Okay.
Well, actually, terrific discussion, but I sort of remember from number one, it's the first day, be patient. I mean, obviously, you decided to go in business, and that's what you're doing. That's your core business, so focus on that. And the point that we talked to is it's sort of like, what's the problem you're trying to solve? Is it, am I selling the wrong car? We didn't think that was the problem you should be solving. The problem you should be solving is more of a sales and marketing question, which is, let's figure out why maybe nobody's coming in on the first day, but that's the problem she was spending time on. Yes. And she made a really good point about, essentially, I think it could impact your brand in the sense that people that buy Lamborghinis, that's sort of a cachet with that, right? So they don't want to see other shitty cars, right? And so,
Yeah, those crappy Volvos.
so you also just talked about, again, sort of you have all your sort of the logistical setup of you have mechanics who are probably trained to fix Lamborghinis, and so this is a one-off again. And it'd be different if it was a whole year went by and nobody came, and all of a sudden you had, then maybe start to look at that. Back to the point of data points, but Scott said, yeah, I mean, one data point on day one.
Right.
I gotta hear what you guys say to her face. I'm sorry, I can't help you today. This might help you speak
Well, have you heard of Southwest Airlines?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's her fellow owner of Southwest Airlines says the same thing, right? If a person goes complain to him on Southwest, this is a real story. They complain to him that, hey, I went, got to take Southwest Airlines, and what the hell, you didn't give me a assigned seat, and blah, 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 and he said, yeah, we're not the right airline. If you want that, then you're going to be happier and better served by going to Delta. And so I would say a version of that, which is basically, our expertise is Lamborghinis, and I don't know that we may not be as,
Within our
effective
group, we talked about all this, we figured it all out, and we're only gonna work on Lamborghini, and I quit. I gotta get the hell out of this group. They are absolutely correct for them, and for me, I gotta get the hell out of there. I can't live in this environment.
That's awesome.
It's interesting. If you got a premium product, then I think it would be like if it was a real situation.
I don't know if that's true, but there might be some insurance issues with it.
Insurance issue, yeah.
So I think those details, we made the assumption, that it's literally a matter of you want the mechanics to do the work and not, and there's no Lamborghini customers to even be offended.
Yeah.
But we make some stuff, if there's details, like that.
That's the problem, that you're fighting the reality of there's one of the kids that do know that that's a very real situation. The real situation too with this is that the stuff to service Lamborghinis is not the same stuff to service.
Yeah.
You're not going to do a picture part a day. You get the part in the
But you
You got a customer, you might be able to upsell and put her, maybe her husband, in
That's what I'm saying.
Lamborghini.
Why is it gonna be a CM? You don't know. Or the risk of that is just so high compared to the.
But if she's willing to pay the $900 difference, then.
The bar is going to have to go up. You're going to have to get the bar. Part of the wonderful thing about this with startups is that there's no con to any type of pivot. If you're going to move some way, you're going to have to do extra work to serve something that's outside. Right? That's one of the wonderful things about it. And so when you start getting into details, that's when you start thinking well, this and this and this, right? I mean, if she was there, she came out and say, no, but you know what? I can't, but let me help you find something.
Yeah, but you're right.
Anybody else want to add something? All right, you guys have anything you want to add, or no?
Did you take the customer or not?
Let's do a vote. Who voted for take the customer? So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right, and who voted said no? Who said no? 1, 2, 12 and 12. So it's evenly split. So that's pretty interesting. I love this exercise. Oh, I don't know. I love this exercise because it really gets to one of the core things that I think are really important about lean startup, and that is know who your customer is, but even more importantly, know who your customer is not. And I've started a few businesses in my life, and one of them was that I used to run years ago was a limousine service. And I thought when I first started limousine service, so I was 20. I wasn't even old enough to go to the bar at the time when I started it. People I was driving around would invite me in, and I'm like, I can't. Well, I thought everyone was my customer. I would hand out cards and promote and everything, and everyone was my customer. And so the most common event, I had a lot of bar hopping events, and I had a lot of weddings and things. And so the two most common events that I had were bachelorette parties and bachelor parties. A lot of times I'd have a bachelorette party, and we had multiple cars, so I'd have the same couple, and the bachelorette party would go out, and the bachelor party would go out. So I loved bachelorette parties for whatever reason. They were awesome. They were fun. But eventually, I had to tell everybody that we won't do bachelor parties at all. If you're having a bachelor party, we won't drive for you. And it was to the point where sometimes people would try to sneak it. And I would just tell the drivers, if you show up and it looks like a bachelor party, bring them home, drop them off, give them their money back, tell them we don't do bachelor parties. And I pissed off some people doing that. Some guy threatened to sue me for sex discrimination or something, like gender discrimination, right? But the point was they were so hard on my car, and it was so miserable, and it was such a problem in the rare cases that it was just, they weren't my customer anymore. It was done. I was willing to walk away from the money for that. And so that was kind of my early lesson. So I'm very firmly in the don't do the work camp because I know who my customer is.
That's that idea.
Yeah.
Leverage it as a story on social media. It's a shitty car.
Stranded mother.
Right, yep. Yeah, so there's the Good Samaritan, there's all of these things. Yeah, but there's many ways to make that customer really happy without actually doing the work. And so the example that I would set aside was calling a tow truck for her, giving her a latte, calling a tow truck for her, getting it done, or maybe taking your tow truck and driving her somewhere, whatever the case is. You can be helpful, but you don't actually need to turn her into your customer. You can turn her into your advocate, but not necessarily.
Really not your customer.
Yep.
Something else fancy for it.
Right. Well, yeah.
I was going to say, can I pose another question to the group?
Sure.
Let's say she drives in the bed. You fix the bed. Now you know she has the money.
If it's hers.
If it's hers. Do you fix the bed? It says no. Anybody?
The question is here, do any of the no's say yes?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's-
y'all say yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still pretty strongly in the no camp just because that's still not my customer, right? But, and that's the thing, right, is that it's really, really hard to walk away from money, right? This is the thing that we're doing in our jobs day to day, is if you quit your job to go do a startup, you're walking away from money. If you turn this customer away, you're walking away from money. You're worried that this is going to have some negative effect. But going back to that model about worse is better, right? Simpler is better. Being simpler about you're my customer, you're not my customer, actually makes you really focus in on your customer, and that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to do a good job for your customer. You're not trying to do a good job for whoever's not your customer. But that's my opinion. There are many ways to do things, and I'm certainly not right very often. Okay, so that's going to be the end of it. I'm going to do a quick prize drawing for the Pluralsight membership. So I'm going to pronounce that wrong. Kirill? Not here? Huh? Are you here?
Yeah.
This you? All right, you win. Congratulations. Come see me, and then if you grab that bag by the corner, I'll give you your card. And then, Tom? Are you here? No? Thank you, sir. A card for you here in just a second. Scott is not here. I would recognize him. What's that? Yeah. Chris, there you go. All right, congratulations. You guys both won Pluralsight for a month. There you go. Chris, feel free to hang out and chat for a bit. I'd love to continue the conversation. I saw you wanted to leave, so I'd love to continue the conversation about the Lamborghinis or whatever else if you want.
Oh, yeah.
Peter, what you been up to? Very well. How are you?
Pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. I'm glad that you do this after work hours.